In 1980, Ferrari released a car that would be called the slowest Ferrari ever made. That car was the Mondial 8, and here is the truly confusing part. It became one of Ferrari's best-selling models with over 6,000 units sold. How can a car be simultaneously the worst Ferrari and a commercial success? That paradox defines the Mondial. The Mondial project began in the mid-1970s when Ferrari needed a replacement for the Bertoni-designed 308 GT4. The goal was creating a practical 2+2 Ferrari with a mid-engine layout. Ferrari named it Mondial, French for world or global, reflecting its worldwide conformance with 1980 safety and emission standards. The name also honored Ferrari's famous 1950s racing cars. Leonardo Fioravanti, the legendary designer already responsible for the Ferrari Daytona and 7 other Ferraris, oversaw development at Pininfarina. Young designer Pierangelo Andreani handled the actual styling. Fioravanti determined that a 4-inch longer wheelbase than the 308 GTB was necessary for proper 2+2 configuration. The body, manufactured by Carrozzeria Scaglietti, used mainly steel construction with aluminum for the nose, engine cover, and doors. The Mondial measured 13 inches longer, 3 inches wider, and 5 inches taller than the 308 GTB. When the Mondial 8 launched in 1980, the criticism was immediate and brutal. The transverse mid-mounted 3.0-liter V8 produced just 214 horsepower. In a car weighing 3,459 pounds, or 1,568 kilograms, that translated to a power-to-weight ratio of 143 horsepower per ton. The Mondial 8 needed 9.4 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour, or 97 kilometers per hour, with some sources claiming 8.2 seconds. The quarter mile took 17.1 seconds. Top speed was 143 miles per hour, or 230 kilometers per hour. These were not Ferrari numbers. These were family sedan numbers wearing a Ferrari badge. The pricing made the insult worse. The Mondial 8 listed for $64,000 in 1980. The Porsche 930 Turbo, which produced 300 horsepower and was dramatically faster, cost just $38,000. Ferrari was charging $26,000 more for a slower, less powerful car. Automotive journalists called it the cheap Ferrari within reach of a reasonably successful orthodontist, hurting Ferrari's exclusivity image. The design drew criticism too. The black wraparound bumpers looked cheap. The taller greenhouse made the car appear ungainly. It was too mundane for a Ferrari, critics said. Then there were the reliability nightmares. The transistor-based electronics proved extremely buggy. Eventually, nearly every electrical system failed on many cars. Owners reported the smell of burning wires becoming a familiar companion. The Mondial 8 damaged Ferrari's reputation across multiple dimensions simultaneously. But here is what confuses everyone. People bought them anyway. The Mondial received continuous improvements throughout its 13-year production run. The 1982 Mondial Quattrovalvole added 4-valve per-cylinder heads, boosting power to 240 horsepower and dropping 0 to 60 time to 7.4 seconds. The cabriolet version introduced in 1983 became highly desirable, especially in the American market. The 1985 Mondial 3.2 brought 266 horsepower and refined interior updates. The 1989 Mondial T arrived with 300 horsepower, revolutionary Formula One-inspired transverse gearbox layout, and power-assisted steering. Automotive press called it the best Mondial yet, saying it finally delivers on the promise of a practical Ferrari without compromising the driving experience. By the time production ended in 1993, Ferrari had sold over 6,800 Mondials, making it one of the company's most commercially successful models. The confusion is complete. How can the worst Ferrari be a bestseller? How can a car criticized by every enthusiast publication sustain a 13-year production run? The Mondial confuses because it proves that critical hatred and commercial success are not mutually exclusive. It was a car Ferrari buyers wanted, even if Ferrari purists did not. The AC3000 ME story begins not in 1979, when it finally went on sale, but back in 1972, when two ambitious designers named Peter Bohanna and Robin Stables built a prototype they called the Diablo. Bohanna had worked at Ford Advanced Vehicle Operations and Lola Cars, while Stables was a former racing mechanic and Lotus dealer. Together, they created what they believed would be Britain's answer to affordable mid-engine sports cars. They showed the Diablo at the London Racing Car Show in 1972, and AC Cars owner Derek Hurlock was impressed enough to buy the rights. The car was renamed the AC3000, and AC promised buyers they could own this mid-engine British sports car for just £3,000 to £4,000. The company showed it at the 1973 London Motor Show, hired engineers Alan Turner and Bill Wilson to develop it for production, and everything looked promising. Then the delays began. Development was supposed to be finished by 1976, but disaster struck when a prototype was sent for mandatory crash testing. New type approval regulations required every car to survive a 30-mile-per-hour crash test. The AC3000 ME failed spectacularly. The steering column moved backward under impact, creating a lethal hazard for the driver. The entire chassis had to be completely redesigned. Multiple rounds of expensive testing followed. Development costs spiraled out of control. Meanwhile, Derek Hurlock's health began suffering under the stress, and AC Cars stayed afloat by producing mobility trikes instead of sports cars. The energy crisis did not help matters either. By the time the AC3000 ME finally went on sale at the 1978 NEC Motor Show, the price had ballooned to £11,300, nearly 3 times the original estimate. First customer cars were not delivered until 1979, a full 6 years after AC had promised them. The automotive world had moved on. The Lotus Esprit had arrived with sleeker styling and better performance. By March 1980, the price had climbed to £13,238. Buyers were being asked to pay Porsche money for a car powered by the 3.0-liter Ford Essex V6, an engine most people associated with family sedans, not exotic sports cars. The 3000 ME produced just 138 horsepower, weighed a hefty 1,128 kilograms, and managed 0 to 60 miles per hour in 8.5 seconds with a top speed of 120 miles per hour or 193 kilometers per hour. Automotive press expressed serious reservations about the handling when pushed hard. Dealers canceled orders. Cars sat unsold in stockpiles. The automotive press gave lukewarm reviews. After building fewer than 80 cars, Derek Hurlock called a halt to production in 1984 due to health issues and the economic recession. In 1984, the AC name and car were licensed to AC Scotland in Glasgow, which built an additional 30 cars to the original 3000 ME specification. After just 1 year, the Scottish operation closed. Total production reached approximately 104 to 106 units, making it one of the rarest British sports cars ever made. The confusion surrounding the AC3000 ME is not about the car itself, but about how it ever made it to production at all. Why would anyone pay £13,238 for an outdated design with mediocre performance when the Lotus Esprit offered superior everything at a similar price? The answer is, they would not. The 3000 ME represents a catastrophic case of missed timing, failed expectations, and price escalation that destroyed any value proposition. A car conceived in 1972 and delivered in 1979 was obsolete the day it arrived at dealerships. The 3000 ME is confusing because it makes no sense from any angle. Wrong timing, wrong price, wrong execution, wrong everything. It stands as a textbook example of how a promising concept can be completely destroyed by poor execution, disastrous timing, and corporate mismanagement. The Lotus Europa was the United Kingdom's first mid-engined sports car, and the purest expression of Colin Chapman's famous philosophy. Adding power makes you faster on straights. Subtracting weight makes you faster everywhere. Chapman designed the Europa to be the ultimate lightweight sports car. He succeeded brilliantly. He also created one of the most user-hostile vehicles ever sold to the public. The Europa originated with drawings by Ron Hickman in 1963 as part of a bid for the Ford GT40 project. Ford chose Lola cars instead, but Chapman decided to use Hickman's aerodynamic design for a production sports car. The Europa represented Lotus moving beyond its kit car image, a proper, complete car to compete upmarket. For the engine, Chapman needed something light and modern. He settled on the Renault 16's 1,470 cubic centimeter straight 4, with its combined transmission and transaxle unit. Here is where Chapman's genius showed. The Renault 16 was front-wheel drive, with the transaxle ahead of the engine. Chapman needed a mid-engine rear-wheel drive layout. His solution? Rotate the entire powertrain 180 degrees. This created one problem. With the gearbox inverted, the car would have had 4 reverse gears and 1 forward gear. Chapman solved this by inverting the crown wheel on the pinion gear. Brilliant engineering. Strange result. The Series 1 Europa, announced December 20th, 1966, showcased Chapman's weight-saving obsession taken to extremes. The car weighed just 610 to 612 kilograms, or 1,345 pounds. How did Chapman achieve this? By eliminating everything. The Series 1 had fixed side windows that did not roll down. The seats were fixed, with the pedals adjusting via tools instead. There were no door handles, external or internal, no internal door covers, an aluminum dashboard, minimal sound insulation, sparse interior trim. The fiberglass body was fully bonded to the backbone steel frame with adhesive, no bolts at all. The car could reach 121 mile per hour, or 195 kilometer per hour, and hit 60 mile per hour in 9.3 seconds with just 82 horsepower. But here is what made the Europa confusing and occasionally terrifying. The visibility was catastrophic. High rear-quarter sail panels continued the roofline all the way to the tail, creating enormous blind spots. Rear three-quarter vision was virtually non-existent. The rear view was badly restricted. One owner described driving on a multi-lane highway as an exercise in terror. The car sat so low that its roof was at waist level on most people, putting the driver at eye level with a Mazda Miata's door handle. Other cars simply would not see you. You were less visible than a motorcycle. Getting in and out required practice and athleticism. The door apertures were narrow, the car was extremely low, and the doors gave many owners nightmares along with scrapes and bruises. The Series 2 Europa, introduced in 1968, addressed some complaints. Opening electric windows replaced the fixed glass. Adjustable seats finally arrived. A carpeted interior and polished wooden dashboard made it more civilized. But the visibility remained terrible. Lotus built 3,615 Series 2 Europas, making it the most popular variant. The construction method switched from fully bonded to bolt fasteners, suggesting the adhesive bonding had created assembly or repair problems. The 1971 twin-cam Europa finally brought proper power with the Lotus Ford 1,557 cubic centimeter twin-cam engine, producing 105 horsepower. More importantly, Lotus cut down the sail panels, dramatically improving rear visibility. The 1972 Europa Special added the 126 horsepower big valve engine and optional 5-speed gearbox. Many special models wore Formula One World Championship livery in black with gold pinstripes, celebrating Lotus racing success. The Europa's confusion lies in its contradictions. How can the best handling car also be the worst to live with? Why sacrifice visibility for aerodynamics to the point of danger? Why use a French mass-market engine in a British sports car? Why make getting in and out an ordeal? The Europa proves you can be too pure, too focused, too uncompromising. It is genius and madness in equal measure. Colin Chapman created the perfect track weapon for the street, but forgot streets require visibility, comfort, and the basic ability to enter the vehicle without injury. The Europa remains confusing because it is simultaneously so right and so wrong. Ask anyone what the most confusing sports car ever made is, and the Porsche 914 should top the list. Or should we call it the Volkswagen Porsche 914? That depends on whether you lived in America or Europe. That single sentence captures the 914's fundamental identity crisis. The 914 began in early 1964 as a joint project between Volkswagen and Porsche. Both companies wanted an affordable mid-engine sports car. Porsche needed an entry-level model below the 911. Volkswagen wanted a sporty successor to the Karmann Ghia. VW chairman Heinz Nordhoff and Ferrari Porsche made a gentleman's agreement to jointly develop and produce the car, sharing costs and profits. Heinrich Klee, a body engineer on Ferdinand Alexander Butzi Porsche's staff, designed the distinctive wedge-shaped body. Porsche archive drafts from August 1964 credit Klee with the design. The plan was elegant. Karmann would manufacture bodies. VW would assemble 4-cylinder versions at its Osnabrück factory. Porsche would assemble 6-cylinder versions at Stuttgart. Everyone wins. Then Heinz Nordhoff died in April 1968. His successor, Kurt Lotz, was not privy to the gentleman's agreement. Lotz demanded VW be paid for all development costs already incurred. This destroyed the original cost-sharing arrangement. Porsche was forced to pay massive tooling bills, ruining the entire pricing framework. The consequences were catastrophic. The 914 with the 6-cylinder Porsche engine ended up priced barely below the 911T. Why would anyone buy a 914/6 when they could have a real 911 for nearly the same money? They would not. Only 3,351 of the 914/6 models sold before Porsche discontinued it in 1972. Meanwhile, the badging confusion alienated everyone. In the United States, the car wore Porsche 914 badges. In Europe, it was badged Volkswagen Porsche 914. Porsche even issued a press release on August 25, 1969, specifically forbidding anyone from calling it the Volks Porsche, meaning People's Porsche. But the damage was done. Was this a Porsche or a Volkswagen? Who should service it? Which dealer network handles warranty claims? The identity crisis existed from birth and never resolved. The 4-cylinder 914 used the VW Type 4 Flat 4, a 1.7-liter air-cooled engine from the VW van and bus. This was not exotic. This was a commercial vehicle engine. The association killed enthusiasm before the first test drive. The early 914/4 produced just 80 horsepower, weighed 1,984 pounds, or 900 kilograms, and needed 12 to 14 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour. The top speed was approximately 110 miles per hour. These were not Porsche numbers. The 1973 introduction of the 2.0-liter engine improved things dramatically, boosting power to 100 horsepower and dropping the 0 to 60 time to 9.1 seconds, with a top speed of 119 miles per hour. But the image problem remained. Porsche purists hated the 914. They called it a glorified Volkswagen, not a real Porsche, an embarrassment to the badge. It was part Porsche and part VW, fitting neither camp. The styling polarized opinion. Critics said the front turn signals bulged out awkwardly like a kit car. The square taillights looked generic, borrowed from a taxicab. The bumpers were surprisingly big and industrial. The car did not look like a Volkswagen or a Porsche. It missed the mark entirely with the public. Here is what makes this story truly confusing. The 914 was named Import Car of the Year for 1970. Automotive editors called it one of the best handling machines any of them had ever driven. The mid-engine layout provided near 50-50 weight distribution, better than the contemporary 911. The removable Targa top panel offered open-air driving with structural rigidity, equal to the 911 Coupe, and better than the 911 Targa. The 914 had two trunks, front and rear, making it more practical than typical two-seaters. And nearly 119,000 people bought them between 1970 and 1976. During its production years, the 914 outsold the 911 by a wide margin. So which story is true? Is the 914 the worst Porsche ever or import car of the year? Is it a sales failure or a commercial success with 119,000 units sold? Is it a fake Porsche or a real Porsche that purists finally accepted decades later? The answer is yes to all of these. The 914 confuses because it is a successful failure, a hated bestseller, a car that angered everyone yet satisfied actual buyers. Perhaps the only people who were not confused were the 119,000 buyers who just wanted an affordable, mid-engine, good-handling sports car and did not care about badge politics. The 914 is confusing because everyone except the actual drivers was overthinking it.